Hey everyone, today we're going to be looking at a tier list for solo queue, so which champions are the best right now if all you care about is climbing. As always, there'll be timestamps and also a list of the champions in the description, but the actual builds and the guides and stuff will be in the video itself. So we're going to start off with AD carry. This shifted a little bit because Sivir was nerfed. Well, Sivir and Essence Reaver actually was nerfed in the same patch, and so now double Zeal champions like Jinx are way stronger. Jinx is ideal right now anyway for AD carries because she's very strong at just one item, just Infinity Edge, and she spikes and starts to kill everything. And she's really good at 2 to 3 and then kind of stays there really. Like rather than constantly powering up like other AD carries, she just spikes really early. She's also top 3 for farm and gold in a game, which is like mainly runins and rockets and just farming the wave in like 2 seconds. And that means she gets her items quicker, which means she's easier to play for most AD carry players who struggle with farming. Resets also mean that you get more kills after the first, you have better cleanup, you're going to snowball a bit better in the game as well, and you absolutely nuke those tower plates or towers in general with your minigun. I know it sounds weird, but a lot of this is just Jinx gets way more gold than other people, and she is really good at 1, 2, and 3 items where most games are decided. Second place though is going to be new. So Ashe with the new Trinity Force and Essence Reaver build is insanely good at the moment. She spams out volleys that do a lot of damage. You have lots of AD in this build, so the volley actually really hurts as well. The Comet adds to the poke damage at the same time, and it's about a 2-second cooldown, so you can really nail everybody with it. You get sheen damage from every single volley, which means that you have good consistent damage from auto attacks after that as well, and sort of burst, I guess, which Ashe really lacks. It's not just your volley cooldown that goes down either, it's your ultimate. With like 40% cooldown reduction, it's about a minute cooldown, even lower later, so you can fish your plays and try and catch people out and snowball the game. Number 3, we're going to have Sivir, still very strong even after the nerfs because she's good at 1 to 2 items like mid-game, but it did hit her lane phase and make that weaker, so you can kind of abuse it a little bit easier. If she does manage to get her Essence Reaver, then it kind of makes up for the W mana cost and you start to like AFK push again, so you have to really beat her before that first item. She has the highest average CS out of any AD carry, also the lowest deaths per game, which make her great for most AD carry players because you have more gold, really easy to farm with, and you're very safe. Last one we're going to look at today that I do want to mention is Caitlyn, because she is much stronger again now with the buffs, especially in the lane phase. Like she's had the AD buff, then also her ultimate. You're able to bully a little bit easier, which is so important because you really need 3 crit items before you're actually going to kill anybody, and that is your 75% crit chance. Obviously at that point you have a higher chance to crit anyway, but actually it boosts your headshot damage because that scales with crit chance. It boosts your trap damage as well, and that is when you really start to kill people way more just because of that. Next up, we're going to look at mid lane champions. This didn't change a ton. Like for starters, we're going to stay with Zed at number 1 because he is able to snowball the lane phase, and now up to about a 40% ban rate pretty much because of that. Nobody likes playing against Zed because he's hard to play against in the lane phase, but once he gets fed, like he doesn't actually need his ultimate to kill someone if he full combos with his shadow, QE, and the auto attack. When he reaches that stage where he can do that, then ultimate somebody else afterwards, instead of just ruining one person in the fight now, he ruins like 2 or 3, right? And that is when Zed is really, really scary as an assassin. He doesn't have a ton of bad matchups right now, which really helps the lane phase out, though apparently Morde mid is a good one to pick against Zed to shut him down if you're seeing him a lot. Number 2, we're going to stick with Ahri again because she's still ultra safe, but really falls off harder in comparison to other mages now, which wasn't happening as much before, so she's very good like early to mid. You can go Ludens to one-shot in Charm and play more like an assassin, I guess. It's a little bit harder, but it's like high risk, high reward, and you just kind of wait and you catch a carry from the side. The other way of doing it is to play Ghost with Glacial, right? Slow and guarantee the Charm. This is how Career does it, by the way, generally anyway. They set up fights for their whole team and kind of catch people. Either way, right now, because she is so safe and she can escape lane versus most matchups, like whether it's good or bad really, she has one of the lowest deaths per game and can even roam well after pushing the wave. Third spot, we're going to look at Katarina, and this is new. She has spiked up massively. In most regions, she is a huge pick for the early phases of the game. Even though she is an assassin and she's played relatively often, she does way more damage than people expect, and at level 6, she could easily get a few kills. It's very hard to stop her, and that is where she kind of gets out of control. Right now, in general, the reason she is so good is because she is one of the best mids for snowballing and ending the game before 20 and 25 minutes, where her damage and healing are too much, at basically like 1 to 2 items. Last up, Malzahar is the opposite of Katarina, and one for our like lower ranks or even just in general, not as flashy, but very, very good. You aren't really that good early, you kind of play to push, but then you're so strong in team fights with the lockdown, and you're going to be strong even if you're behind. So he's very good like as a consistent pick to climb. If you do manage to get a few kills, you're really good gank assist, so like your jungler can come and you can just ult and stuff. You do a lot of damage yourself with a couple of items. You can silence, you can slow with Rylai's, and burn with Liandry's. We're going to take a look into the jungle now. This did shift a little bit, actually, because we had a massive influx of tanks recently in the last few patches, right? But it seems like now we're kind of back to bruisers and damage picks. Jarvan is the best for that. That is why he's our #1 pick. He can engage like a tank can, but he can also hard gank people early. Cheese level 2 with red buff, camp them, and just take over games and kind of eliminate a laner from the game. His damage is definitely good enough himself with a lead to kill people, right? Even just like one combo, EQ, R, and auto attack can remove an AD carry from a fight and kind of like carry the start of it at least. As you get later into the game, that becomes a little bit less true, like his damage does fall off a little bit, but he also gets the second highest assist in the game for a jungler because of his flag. He drops that in a fight, everybody gets attack speed, which is really nice, hugely underrated I think anyway, but it also buffs him so he gets free gold from the assist. Our second spot, we're going to look at Kayn, and for a change, like at least from stats, both are working. Now, normally one of the forms suits the meta a little bit better than the other, but actually both are good right now. Red Kayn is more like the front line. He will survive forever with the healing, but he still brings damage, crowd control, kind of like Jarvan, but better tank and worse early. Blue Kayn is nuking everybody, and with the change to Shadow Step for the lower cooldown, he can burst people, kill them really quickly, but then escape after, which is a huge part, the huge new part. If you can make it to 3 items, whichever form you want to go, that seems to be the sweet spot for Kayn in general, but he can carry himself and not have to rely on his team as much, which is kind of rare for junglers. So Hecarim is still going to be in this video, moved down to 3rd spot. I think it was 2nd last time, but he's sort of like that as well, just worse later. And again, there are 2 ways to do this. Either you can take Ghost and you can charge on in with that and like burst and start a fight that way, or you can take Ignite and become an insane 1v1 champion with Conqueror. Either way, you have very good ganks, you have amazing farming, Conqueror healing with your W is nuts, and again, you bring the damage to carry and some engage, so you're kind of like a really well-rounded package. A lot of these junglers are actually quite good at carrying, and again, we're going to stick with that for our kind of lower elo honorable mention, which is Rengar, and he's such a good stomp champion for lower ranks right now. He's not too hot in the early phases, but at level 6, that really changes. You just got to make sure those first few ultimates count and you get some kills, because that's really the key to like snowballing the game. With early cooldown reduction, you can ultimate way more often, you can nuke people, and then you keep doing more damage as the game goes on as well. You don't really fall off. The only thing someone can do really to stop you is Guardian Angel or like a Zhonya's, which an AD carry can't really do. Next up, we're going to look at our top laners, and I think we're going to start with the strongest champion in the game, probably, which is Mordekaiser. He is still insanely busted at the moment, and that is why his ban rate is still around 70%, which is crazy for a few patches after the rework. The first thing is just the damage, right? Give him 2 items, and you can't really go near him anymore and duel him, especially when they slow and they burn for more damage. He's also just very hard to kill in general. The healing and the shielding from his kit is difficult enough, but then you have Conqueror, you have Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter, which all add on top of it. He's not really a burst champion. He can be if he's fed, but he kills things over time, and that is perfect for Conqueror. Last up is his ultimate. It's horrible to play against. It's pretty much a death sentence unless he's very weak, but even then it makes it very hard to kite away from him, especially when he has that Rylai's. Number 2 is kind of interesting. We're going to look at Darius, but especially in North America, by the way, Darius is crazy. I'm not really sure why it's different there, but in general, he's just a massive lane bully. You can snowball out of control on Darius pretty easily. Like, you can get a lot of 1v1 kills, and then you can start to 1v2 ganks as well. And when that happens, they basically lost the game, and there's no real way to shut him down anymore. He spikes really hard, like really hard at 1 item with Trinity Force, and then again when he completes hysterics afterwards. And that is when he's at his strongest in the game, and when you want to try and avoid him or fight away from him. If you can drag the game out and stop him getting more towers or more kills after that stage, then you can kind of like overtake him and outscale, but that's just not as easy anymore. Our 3rd spot is going to go to Aatrox today, and he's getting a lot stronger for solo queue, being banned in about 40% of games now and getting way more popular as well. He's got a very strong lane phase with his new kit, the damage, but especially the healing as well. Like, it's really hard to bully him out of the lane phase. With how his ult works now as well, it's not going to be as good to dive, but it's better at chasing people, especially, or like flat out running away, or just even flat out fighting. The funny thing is, he's top 10 for damage dealt in games, which is pretty good, right? But he's also top 10 in damage taken. For someone who isn't building tank items and is not a tank, it shows you how much he heals and how much damage he actually absorbs. Last up, we're going to look at an honorable mention, kind of a low elo pick as well. Illaoi had some changes this patch and is now a really underrated pick that you can abuse for sure. She's very good in the lane phase and in the first few big fights where ultimate can really dominate, especially now it can spawn another tentacle to slam down on. It just seems like Illaoi is getting ahead more often now compared to last patch. Maybe that's a stronger lane phase, but also a W working against towers means more plates and more gold, so that is definitely going to help. Last role we're going to look at today is going to be support, and this is probably the most boring one to do because Lux is dominating everything. Best early game support, has everything you could want and more, honestly, and I expect her to get nerfed, or I hope so. First up, we have the defensive side, right? We have the shielding, we have the snare to protect people, aftershock to absorb a lot of damage and not die, and that is one of the reasons why it's so hard to play against her. The offensive side as well is really good though. You have the snare to follow up on things, a little bit of poke, but honestly not very much with aftershock, and then a really big all-in with your ultimate eventually that does a lot of damage at level 6. this. She's kind of like a kill lane, but also has the defensive sides, which is really weird. But then honestly, later into the game, your shield is huge. You can buff your AD with Sensor and still find picks for the team, so she is going to be useful at any stage. With Pyke taking a little bit of a vacation after the nerfs though, our second spot is going to go to Thresh. He's going to come up more as the best hooker now. I actually think as well, when Lux gets nerfed, Thresh is probably going to be the best by a mile, by the way. He has the same sort of thing where like one hook is normally a kill with his own damage and the AD carry on top. I think it's quite hard to gank with like his Flay and his Lantern. If he plays it well, he's just going to run away, Lantern the AD out, and that's pretty much it over. Obviously, the offensive side is really good. Like, he's definitely a kill lane with the Flay. Sometimes that's just enough, but then a hook afterwards. And he's good in every single game. Like, you're a kill lane, you can chill, you can roam, and then find key hooks later to snowball. The third spot is a bit different, so we're going to have Nami, and not as strong in the lane phase anymore with all of these kill lanes around, but once she gets her Sensor, it's so easy to apply the buff, it just makes her AD too strong. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but it isn't just about Nami. Like, she gives the AD a slow, a bonus damage, speed, heals, and Sensor together. That's not a bad combo for any AD right now moving into mid-game fights. She can set up a lot of plays with ultimate and bubble combo as well, so she isn't just a buffing tool, she can also protect with the same way, so sort of it can't really go wrong, and you can pick her in pretty much every game. Last up, as a kind of low elo but honorable mention as well, Janna might seem a bit weird, but if you play W max and you can actually carry the lane phase as Janna. This is insane for low ranks as well because people don't know how to deal with that constant low cooldown poke. You can also protect people as well who make the most stupid plays and keep them from dying for it. The last thing they did to her was reworking her shield to get a bit of a lower cooldown when you slow and you knock people up, right? So you can have an amazing start to a team fight with too many heals and shields to kill anyone from your team and give your team the advantage. So that's going to wrap up the tier list for 9.13. Hopefully that helps you a little bit and gives you a little bit of direction of what you want to play in solo queue. Thank you for watching until the very end of the video. But for now, I will leave you with the robots.